I think one of the key takeaways is that China is very intent on trying to make sure that the economy recovers from this terrible pandemic that the entire world is suffering from. I think that their goal to continue to fight poverty will continue unabated. I mean, they've done a great job over the last 40 years, bringing over 800 million people out of poverty. I think that will continue full force. I think that they will also do whatever they can to strengthen the healthcare system, as many other countries around the world have realized they have to do to prepare against the potential for another pandemic sometime in the next couple of years.
Certainly no vaccine yet. They're still working on that. That being said, with all the uncertainty surrounding coronavirus, what do you make of China's domestic economic proposals?
I think that the proposals are realistic. I was very impressed with the fact that they did not set a growth target for this year, but at the same time they set a growth target for employment. So certainly an indication that they really care about the people in China. Believe it or not, even if China only grows between 1 and 1.5% this year, it's pretty impressive when you consider that the rest of the world is actually contracting. In the United States, we're probably going to contract as much as 7%. Europe is probably going to be somewhere between 6.5% and 7%, and even Latin America will probably contract by close to 7.5%. So China will grow a lot slower this year than it's been used to, certainly slower than last year, 6.1%. The goals, I think, are realistic, and I think the goals will be met.
And Anthony, many outside of China, including yourself, look to the two sessions at an economic standpoint to see what the global economy can look to in the next year. So what role would you say China has in the global economic recovery?
I think China is going to play an important role because it's going to be one of the few major economies that actually is going to register positive economic growth. To the extent that we have seen how China has recovered from this terrible pandemic. Hopefully we will be able to gather some lessons from that. We also know that China is making great progress in developing a vaccine and in fact offering to share it with the rest of the world. All great things, and hopefully other countries around the world adopt that same strategy.
Let's quickly look at the global supply chain, very much disrupted from the coronavirus. Where does China fit in as this country is getting back online while other countries continue to recover and try to open up?
Even though the manufacturing supply chain for China is back online, the only thing that's actually still under a weak environment is Chinese consumption. But manufacturing, which we all know China basically manufactures, is almost 35% of all the manufacturing production around the world. That global supply chain will be negatively impacted because there's simply not as much demand globally, and that will hurt economic growth this year in China. But next year, we will see the rest of the world recovering, and I think that China will also recover. And by the way, even the IMF believes that you're going to see a recovery. I believe it, and I think that